O-rings, what do they do and why do you want them? If you love the way your keyboard feels and functions but hate the sound that comes out of it, these may just help you out a little bit. They're little elastic rings that sit on your keycap stem and cushion the key as you whack it, thus dampening the sound and also decreasing the bottom out distance of your keystroke. I've never installed these before, so I don't know how effective they'll be, but I guess that's what this video is for. So when you invest in something like these, the questions to ask, generally speaking, are: how much is the clicky-clacky sound reduced? How different does the actuation feel? And, if applicable, how heavily is the lighting impacted? I'll have 3 different sound tests, one without the O-rings, one comparing the keystrokes with O-rings and without O-rings, when I'm about halfway finished with the installation, and a last one with all O-rings installed. You'll be able to observe the rainbow lighting as I go, but I'll do one lighting demonstration using a solid color since there will be no variation there. For your reference, these O-rings are being installed on a Corsair Strafe RGB keyboard with Cherry MX Red switches. Installing the O-rings is fairly easy. If your keyboard came with a keycap puller, just use those to pop the keys out. You'll see that there's a stem on the bottom side of your keycap. The O-ring slides right onto there, and then you can slap that sucker right back onto your keyboard. If the company that manufactures your keyboard hates you and did not provide a keycap puller with the keyboard, you can either buy one or yank them off with your fingers. Just be careful to pull up perpendicular from the keyboard and try not to put too much torque on the switch. The rings I'm using are from Rosewool, and I found them for relatively cheap, but they're actually pretty expensive, comparatively speaking. And you can find them on eBay and Amazon, and they will be linked in the description if you want to see them anyway. There are a bunch of options that are like 600% cheaper that will probably do the same job at the same efficiency, that I will also toss in the description, so use what you will. There are options for different inner and outer diameters, firmness, and thickness for varying levels of dampening. The package I bought has 135 rings, although there are options for 120, 150, and even over 200 if you really need that many. This half was done. And this was not. And here is where I forgot to put the lighting demo I promised. You can see the switches fully exposed here. On the left side is where the O-rings are installed, and on the right, they are not. Cameras and/or monitors can tend to portray lighting or colors inaccurately depending on the quality of the camera, but from my point of view, I see almost no difference in the lighting from one end of the keyboard to the other. But then again, my eyes really aren't all that good to begin with. Hopefully this video will suffice, but for now, back to the time-lapse. Some of these claim to be oil resistant, which seems more like a marketing gimmick to me. If you didn't know, oil eats away at rubber and thus reduces elasticity, and after some time the rubber can actually crumble away. While your key switches will have oil in them, I don't think it'll ever actually get on the O-ring, and the oil from your hands really shouldn't impact them all that much unless you're handling them like all the time. As I'm installing the O-rings, I'm definitely noticing a shorter bottom out distance when tapping on the keys. In terms of sound dampening, it does seem quieter, I would hope. The key presses are definitely still noticeable, but the definitive click that these key switches are known for is significantly reduced. After installing all of the rings, doing a quick count shows I've got 15 left. So I guess these are the spares just in case you lose a few, or if you want to double up on some keys. I guess that can work too. That being said, I guess the Corsair Strafe will use 120, and that's assuming that there were exactly 135 in the bag that I had initially. So here we go. Now, as for a conclusion, there is definitely a difference in the way it feels. The distance to bottom out the keyboard is obviously shorter, and as a result, it does feel a little quicker, even though the actuation point remains unaffected. It does make the keys feel a tad squishier, but the big click that you normally expect out of here is heavily reduced, so I guess that's a good thing. All this stuff is fairly subjective, though. Some people might not like the reduced bottom out distance or squishiness, and some people may actually like the click, and that's okay too. So that's all I've got to say about that. If you enjoy this kind of thing or learn something, toss me a like. If you really enjoyed it, consider subscribing to my channel, and that'd be real swell. On the other hand, if you hated everything about it, do the opposite of all that. Perhaps consider leaving me a comment telling me what you would have expected to see instead, and I will try to alleviate your concerns. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.